was actually scheduled to go back to my country and run the company. But I realized at that time that even if I am the highest ranking woman in the company, if I am not a mother, my life would not be complete. So because of that, I left. And fast forward, now I'm a mother of 2 children. GiveLight actually was born out of a tragedy. If you remember the tsunami of 2004, if you remember, can you just raise your hand? So, okay, so all of you remembered, right? And that was a disaster of huge magnitude. And even if you don't know anybody from that region, right? As a human being, when you saw such calamity, you're moved and touched. So for me, that pain was magnified 1,000 times because I came from that island that is closest to the epicenter. And I lost my uncle, I lost my cousins, friends from childhood. So it was a very difficult time for me. I was a new mother at that time. And the thought of orphans, children left behind without parents, it was haunting me, right? And in my region alone, there's 25,000 new orphans. So that was the impetus of GiveLight. I came together with my closest friends and we decided to focus on children. At that time, I had no idea about nonprofit. I had no idea about, orphans, but I know that if I have a clear vision and mission, and if it's compelling to many, and I'm willing to work hard for it, then I had every reason to believe that it would be successful. So that was the impetus. We had about maybe 10 people in the first meeting. And from the very beginning, I know that I wanted GiveLight to be a global institution. So I don't want it to be just focusing on Indonesia. So I think with that background, perhaps it would be a good place for me to show you some of the homes that we built and a little bit of history. I'm very visual, right? Just an example behind me right here. This is the home we built in Morocco. I don't have a home like this. This is more beautiful than my own house here in Silicon Valley. And usually when you think of an orphanage, you think of a dark place, but I wanted to change that narrative. I want to show what's possible. And I'm going to walk you through sort of the first home and then where we are today and potentially how we can work together. So I think, Paul, at this point, you will need to make me a host. And then I'm going to try to share my screen. If I remember how to do this, because I usually use Google. Where do I find share screen?
Bottom. I think you can share without being the host. Do you see the share screen at the bottom?
I see participant, chat. This one?
Share screen?
Share?
Yes.
Okay, so let me go to my...
It didn't request it yet, permission.
It just say host disabled participant from sharing.
Okay. All right, let me turn you over to, so don't hang up at the end because you'll disconnect the whole meeting, but let me make you the, I'm going to make you the host, but make sure and pass it back before you hang up.
Okay, I'll be your temporary host.
Okay, so I just made you the host. You should be able to do that now.
Okay, so let me try again. Okay, awesome. I think it's showing. Okay, can you all see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So we already talked about the introduction and I want to show you the first home that we built. So if you look at the left, that's the first home. The land was donated by my own uncle. It's on a foothill overlooking a lake. And when you look at it, you think it's somebody's home. It's just the difference is that you have 40 children living there. And to your right is the home that we built in Sri Lanka, also on donated land. So far we have built 5 homes. And I wanted to show you this one picture that I love from my last trip to Morocco. This is my family in Morocco in front of the home that you can see. We have 40 girls. This is the last home that we built. And the King of Morocco was so impressed by the sort of the standard, the architecture, and he actually sent his governor and sponsored the grand opening for this home last 2 summers ago. And as you can see, the home itself is beautiful, but we know that the most important part of our work is the children. And I'm gonna switch a little bit to the support. We are supported by many major corporations. And again, I started with just 10 people, all volunteers. In fact, for the first 8 years of operation, we didn't have any paid staff. Everything is run by volunteers, and that has allowed us to save a lot of money. And from 10 people, now we're looking at about 7,000 donors around the world. And we have matching program from Cisco, Apple, Google, I think most recently Disney, Twitter, LinkedIn. So it's just tremendous amount of support. And all of this is not because I actually reach out to those companies, but because people who support our work saw the passion, so they initiated. And because of that, we were able to grow. And I wanted to also show another picture of the trip that I took with the children last summer. I love going to the beach with my own kids, so we took this trip to the beach, and it was sponsored. We actually had to get, I think, 3 minibuses to get everyone together, about 10 to 15 volunteers, all the children, and we had a beautiful time. This is a resort area in the border of Morocco and Algeria. So just to summarize, we are now in 11 countries, helping more than 1,000 children. And our main purpose is to create a loving family for them, create a happy childhood, and then invest in their long-term education. I want to share another picture that I took in Bangladesh. This is from my trip. It was a monsoon season. I'm sure, Gita, you're familiar with monsoon. It was pouring, and I was kind of concerned. It was also hot during the day. So this is after I taught the girls yoga, and they were all laughing. And I said, I want to capture this moment of happiness. So you see how it doesn't take a lot to make children happy, just your time, your attention. They don't ask for expensive gifts. It's just being with you is enough for them. And I talked a little bit earlier about long-term education. So really happy to share that from our first home, we had now 15 children who have graduated from university. Some have become scholars and teachers, a business person, and some actually have gotten married. So you see, this is their wedding picture and have children of their own. So it's really a beautiful ecosystem of giving. I don't believe in doing something for a month or two. I like to see, even if it's just one child, right? To see them from the moment you hold their hands in maybe middle school, even elementary school, seeing them through to college and being an adult, it's more satisfying to me than maybe helping millions of people that I don't even get to see, and just maybe help them one time. So that's the philosophy that we have. It's a philosophy of love and giving the best that we can, and also giving them dignity. The other thing I wanted to share quickly is that I don't accept secondhand donation. Sometimes you go to these orphanages, you see kids with torn clothes, they look really sad. I think having new clothes affects their self-esteem. And I think building confidence is wonderful. And we actually do a lot of competition with the kids. We do speech competition. We just finished actually one speech competition, but that was geared towards more children outside. But eventually we also want to do among our own children, because that really builds their confidence. And when you're confident, I think you can present yourself. And that's how I think many of our children were also able to get scholarship all the way to college. And then I want to speak quickly, how can you help? It's really easy. I think as Rotary also, we believe in giving back in service. So we are big on, mobilizing our community. If you have certain talents, you can join our team. It doesn't have to be a huge time commitment, just an hour a week. Right now we have a summer intern this summer. I was looking for 5. We were able to get 25 summer interns, and more than half of them actually decided to continue, because we only asked for an hour a week, right? And I think an hour a week is doable for many people. And then the other thing that we just launched is, we call this Project Inspire. You can actually tutor any of our children in any of the homes to teach them English, math, science, art, anything that is beneficial. Even, I have a friend who's a national champion of chess. I said, why don't you teach our kids how to play chess? And then eventually travel and teach. I think a lot of people really enjoy that. We had 6 volunteers from Salesforce last December to go to our home in Morocco, and they built for us a computer room. And now we just won a grant and also partnership with Salesforce. We have been chosen as their global partner. So they will be doing more with us over the next 12 months. So something again that you can consider. And then of course you can sponsor a child, you can sponsor a project, a home. I know Rotary is also big in giving back. So I would love to find a way where we can maybe collaborate. I know Gita, you had sort of alluded to this. I would love to continue maybe the conversation on that. And then something that is free, if you're on sales social media, you can like us on any of the platforms. It's free and also help sort of build awareness, because we're small. We don't believe in any, mass advertising. We don't want to spend any flyers. It's all mainly word of mouth. And I think that really helps in terms of building a lot of loyalty. But maybe the drawback is that we are not known to many outside of the Bay Area, outside of the community. So if you happen to be on any of the platform, just connect with me on LinkedIn, and then just like us on social media. So with that, I am going to stop. I love to get your thoughts and questions. I think if you want to stop me as being a host now, Paul, maybe it's a good time, because I pretty much share some of the key slides. And thank you so much again for giving me the opportunity to share.
This is great.
I can hear you speaking. Is it Gita?
No, this was Mamta Narayan. This is awesome what you have done.
Thank you so much. Where are you based in the East Bay, Mamta?
Yeah, I'm based out of Fremont.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, we have a lot of volunteers also in the East Bay. One of the things we also do before COVID is every month we do a campaign with a restaurant. So we just go eat out with our friends, and restaurant will give back proceeds to GiveLight. So I don't know if you know Merchi, for example, in the East Bay, partner with us, True Food, PF Chang, any of these restaurants we have done in the past. But COVID, we have to stop, and we now maybe do a little bit more of online, which is not the same, but there's nothing much we could do. So thank you.
Where are you based out of? I missed that part.
We have an office in San Jose, so South Bay, but I am based in Sunnyvale.
Got it.
Yeah. Other questions, thoughts?
So there was some typed in. Gita was asking, how do you teach, and how can she travel and teach? And my question, there was a few other questions too.
Yeah, so let's take that one first. For now, we just finished our quarter. So what we do is we do by quarter, because sometimes people are sort of afraid, like when I'm signing up to something, right? People want to know, is it a lifetime commitment? No, it's just quarter by quarter. So our requirement is that you fulfill at least 80% of 10 classes. So our next session will be beginning in November. We have onboarding session. We also have sort of curriculum, because many people, teaching could be intimidating, although you speak English, but maybe you don't know how to teach English. So we want to make sure that we provide people with some basic sort of curriculum, but then there's a lot of area for creativity. For example, if you want to teach kids through songs, through storytelling, there's a lot of that. But the main purpose is to help the kids be more fluent in English, because maybe India is an exception, but if you go to Asian country, even the English teacher, they're not fluent in English. They understand the theory, understand the grammar, for example, but speaking is another thing altogether. So our goal is to make the kids more fluent and confident in communicating using English. So if anyone wants to be one of the mentors for Project Inspire, my email is Paul has my email. Just contact me via email, and then I will add your name to the list, and then we will invite you to the onboarding session, and then link you to the right platform. So thank you so much for that interest.
I'm going to put your email in the chat right now, and I am interested in trying it out. So,
wonderful.
I'm gonna
I love it.
email in here, and I've done some of that before, but not internationally.
Wonderful. See, now you have a global exposure, right? With technology, you know, we are in Silicon Valley. So I said, why not leverage technology to really make an impact? And my longer term is, maybe this is what we can discuss also with Rotary, because I know you have youth club. Imagine a scenario where we can mobilize volunteers from all over the world to teach kids, not just in our homes, but in other orphanages, and even reaching out to refugee camps. There's so many, millions of people in a refugee camp. But that's long term. I want to just now tackle our home, maybe for the first year, and then expand to other orphanages, and then we can benefit the whole world. Why not?
Dian, could you prepare like a one, or maybe you already have this, do you have like a one-page letter that you could email that talks about this tutoring program? Because I could also share it at church too. There's a bunch of youth that are stuck at home and they need some stuff to do. So
yes.
okay.
At this point, we are already sort of almost, maybe we can take a few. So let's wait until next term, because I also don't want to have too many people and then we don't have enough classes, because the logistic is time with the homes, because they are in Asia. The one thing we need right now is English teacher for Turkey, but they could only do it when it's about like 6 a.m. in the Bay Area because of the time difference. But who wants to wake up at 6 in the morning to teach, right? So maybe that one is a bit unique. If you have connection to maybe East Coast, will be good. Or if Gita was raising her hand, you're willing to wake up early to teach?
It's once a week. It's not that bad, right?
Okay, awesome. Awesome, wonderful. I love it.
So were there some other questions? Do we have any other questions before I read some from the chat? Lene, Murad? I know Murad knows about your organization before. When I talked to him this week, he said he is.
Really?
Knows about you, yes. Uh-huh.
Oh, what's Murad's last name? Maybe we met before.
Murad, are you there? You're on mute. I don't know if you can see her. Okay.
You're breaking up.
So one of the other questions was, it seems like it's a pretty good sized organization that I had was, has COVID affected the donations or the implementation of what you're doing? Or has it gone pretty okay through COVID?
Yeah, it was actually quite surprising. You know, COVID happened and we had to cancel about 4 events around April. So we were not sure what was going to happen, but I think to some extent, actually we saw an increase in donation, to my surprise, especially during the holy month of Ramadan. This Ramadan has been the best in the entire history, I think, because people are looking more to find meaning and purpose. I think people also come into realization that, you know, we are living with a lot of abundance and there's so much poverty in the world. So we haven't seen a decrease so much, but we also not very active in doing a lot of campaign. Only in Ramadan we did like an online video, and because we also matched by a lot of corporation, I think it hasn't been impacting so much. But in terms of our children in Morocco, especially, the kids were requested to leave our home, which is really sad for us. That was not just for GiveLight, but the entire country, they I think adopted a very stringent sort of COVID protocol by the government. So they actually requested that we vacate our home. So we had to actually send the kids to their relatives, and also the government helped a little bit with rent. So in the cases where the kids have no relatives to go, we had to actually find a place for them to live temporarily for a few weeks. So that was really sort of sad for me to see, you know, because we want to make sure the kids feel secure and stable, but unfortunately that has affected. But now they're all back. Kids are all back in our homes. Yeah. Yes, Gita.
So I wanted to ask, what's your next project that you're building and which country are you tackling? And how much money do you actually ask for this particular project?
Yeah, so we have a pipeline of projects. The next one we had land donated in Pakistan, in Lahore. And then we are looking also in South Africa, because what I wanted to do, Africa, you know, I want West, East, North, and South. So those are the 2 countries that we have, but I am open to build anywhere with assumption that we have land donated. And I think we learned that when you have that, you immediately have a family on the ground who can become your ears and eyes on the ground. Because raising money to buy land in some country in America is really easy, right? I can easily get, let's say, $50,000 and build something. I'm just making this up in Tanzania, let's say. But then if without that family, right, you go, you buy the land, you impose yourself as Americans trying to solve other people's problem, and then you leave. What's going to happen is kids will be abused, people will steal from you, nobody's going to watch it. So that's why we have made it, clear that wherever we build, we want to make sure that we have a family on the ground that will become GiveLight's family, and then we'll hire people as our staff. But then the family will be there to make sure that there's check and balances. And we all know that there's so many horror stories in the world where kids are abused, neglected. I was recently approached by somebody in Romania who wants to partner with GiveLight. And if you study the history of orphans in Romania, you will be crying, because there's 500,000 orphans in Romania. They are neglected, abused, dark places. It's just such sad stories. So for me, this is my responsibility, not only to my donors, but to God. So I want to make sure that the kids are taken care of with love and with dignity. So to answer your question, Gita, if we can find anywhere in the world with the assumption there's a family there who will be watching it for us, then I am open to any area. But let me tell you the part that I think I have sort of stronger connection also. I feel like Afghanistan, although I have not been there, but because of the war, I wanted to help in Afghanistan. Yemen, as you know, crisis right now. We all want to help, but we really can't do much. So anywhere where there's conflict and war, I think that's where the needs are greatest, but unfortunately also the most difficult to go to. And then also India, as you know, India has about 20 million orphans. I don't know if we need to build another homes in India, but I would love to find a way for GiveLight, to do something there. You're like shaking your head, meaning, yeah, do you have any thoughts on that?
Like you said, you need a champion in locally. So we need to find donors who can be champions, and they have subsequent generations who would be interested in maintaining the property too. Yes. You have to find reliable people. I think that model is very important. Well, you're right.
Yes. Otherwise you cannot sustain it, right? Or, you build it and then you hear.
It's the abuse part that bothers me the most.
Yes, it's really scary. That's why we don't build too many homes, because we want to make sure we can learn first. We know how this works, and then we scale after that. We were even thinking maybe instead of continuing to build, we can find homes in any country where kids are actually loved and cared for, but maybe they don't have the resources, and GiveLight can come and give the funds. But love and care is something you cannot buy with money. So thank you so much for the questions. I love that we are engaged and there's a lot of interest. And I don't know if you have any more questions, Paul, or is this a good time?
I give other people, but I don't a chance. One of my questions, so one of the things we're proud of at Fremont Bridge Rotary is that we have a very diverse religious background. Like we have people who are Muslim, we have people who are Hindu, we have different religions, Christian. Yes. And that's one thing that I'm very proud of our club. It's small, but we're very diverse. And so with your organization, it's very clear, this comes from the heart from you, just hearing you speak. When you choose, and obviously you have a lot of connections probably in the Muslim community. So when you choose a place to build a school, is there, and there's nothing wrong if it is, but is it focused more on Muslim countries, or how do you do that? Or how do you do that? How does that?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, it just starts with our own team who wants to donate land. Usually our own team comes from like places like Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Bangladesh. So far it's mainly in the Muslim predominant country. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm talking to somebody in Romania. That's not a Muslim country, right? So I'm willing to go anywhere with the assumption that there is going to be condition that there's going to be a family who will be willing to donate land. having said that, we also work in Nepal. We work with an organization in Nepal. And I don't even know what religion the kids are. I think they may be Buddhist or Hindu. It doesn't matter to me, as long as they're children and in need and I know that I can trust the people, I will help. We also work with Mexico. I have gone to Mexico twice. And again, there are already homes, but the kids need support financially. So instead of building another home in Mexico where I don't know who's going to run it, we actually partner with this organization. And right now we are supporting 15 toddlers. And some of them are actually babies who were given, like I think Linnea was talking earlier about foster care. I actually seen baby who were left in this home, maybe 1 week old. And it's just so heart-wrenching and heartbreaking. So I decided to support that orphanage as well. And if we want to pick one country, for example, we can just focus maybe on growing Mexico because we are here and we can take volunteers to go to visit, assuming it's safe after COVID. So there are a lot of opportunities. We want to continue to expand, but I don't want to scale too fast, too quickly, and then we don't have the system in place. I would rather run slowly, build a really solid foundation, and then there's a talk within our team. Maybe we can look at some, acquiring other homes and use our philosophy, which is to build the foundation of the children, not just until they graduate from high school, because after 18, normally in all the homes, what happened after 18, kids go back on the street because they're considered adult. We don't want that to happen to any of our children, right? After 18, what do you want to do? You want to go to college? We will support you. We are actually going to start a scholarship for any of our children who want to go to university. We say, here's a loan. It will be interest-free, but you will return it back to GiveLight after 4 years so that we can continue to educate the next generation of children. So it's no longer a charity from now on for all the college students.
That's one thing that I really like about what you were talking about in your presentation, is that many times people mean to do well, they go do something, and it lasts for a short time and then it kind of dissipates. And I think so what you're talking about in your structure and approaching how this is going to be very long-term is very meaningful, because it, like you said, if it's just a short-term thing, the kids just go back to whatever, trouble or whatever issues they were having before. It's easy to fall back into the things that are not good for them. Or, one of the questions I had was, where do the orphans, 2 questions and then I'm done. One of the questions is, where do the orphans come from most of the time? And the second question is, how much does it cost to sponsor a child?
Excellent question. So we work with the local people to make sure that these are really poor kids who have no parents, because sometimes in some countries, people can fake even death certificate. Okay, when they see a beautiful home, they see it as an opportunity to get free education. So we learned the hard way that you need to really make sure you do your due diligence to make sure that the kids have lost their parents, at least the father, and then they're really poor, right? We make exceptions. Also, sometimes the mother is still alive, but if the mother is sick or live in like a remote area, the kids would have been another farmer who makes $1 a day, then we will take that child. But right after the tsunami, actually, we had a case where we took a sibling. And then later on, we learned that the grandparents are still alive and they're pretty wealthy. And so they start coming with cell phone and other things. So it creates a lot of social jealousy. So unfortunately, we had to return those siblings. So does that answer your first question, Paul, before I go to the second?
Yeah, I was just wondering how where they come from. Like, I mean, obviously the tsunami was a massive thing.
Yes.
And so I just wasn't sure where most of them come from. So it's usually the parents die in an accident or a disease or something like that. And then how?
That's correct. And then they live with poor relative who has like even 5 children of their own and they cannot support and maintain long-term. So we work with people in the villages. We tend to build in the rural area. So it's small town and people know everybody. So it's easier to sort of make sure that this really indeed are needy, orphans. Because you could be an orphan, but if you come from sort of a well-to-do family, there is really no need for them to come to our home, right?
Yep.
Okay. So the second question, we have different levels. You can sponsor food for $1 a day, which is like when I go to school, sometimes I speak to the kids. I said, what can you get for $1 when you go to Starbucks? And they're like, nothing. Even a bottle of water with tax is going to be more than $1, right? Because of, I think, the strength of dollar when you send it to countries like Bangladesh, Indonesia, you know, there is a stronger buying power. So we're able to support for $30 a month or $1 a day, you sponsor the meal for the kid, one child. And then you can also sponsor food and education. You can sponsor the whole thing, including medical, you know, schooling, clothing, books, basically 100% for $80 a month or $1,000 a year. So again, you know, for some people, that's, if you send your kids to public school, maybe that's a lot, but if you send your kids to private school, that's the money you spend maybe a month, right? That can cover the child for the entire year. So we want to make sure that, you know, it's not a burden for most people. When we started GiveLight 15 years ago, we say $1 a day. 15 years later, the prices has gone up, but we still have that. But because we also have a lot of general donations, so we can sort of complement that. But we want to make sure that it's doable and easy to do for as many people as possible. Does that answer the question, Paul?
Yes. There's a
awesome.
in Vietnam that my wife and I support. My wife's Vietnamese, where I think it's basically $25 a month supports, and we specifically wanted to support kids with special needs because they just get much attention. They're never going to get good grades, and yeah, they need.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I mean, there's so much need. Even earlier, right? People say, okay, you know, where do you start? But you have to start somewhere. Otherwise, it's overwhelming. And even in America, in the US, there are kids who are in foster care. They're not in orphanages, but they live with, you know, families. But if you also research, it's not the best system either. Sometimes up to high school, a child would have lived in about 8 different homes. And there's no dignity in the process. You know, you move from one home to the next and you pack your items in trash bags. You know, it's just very, very sad. So we also wanted to do more here in the US. We started partnering with 2 foster homes. We actually built a library, one in Gilroy and another one in San Francisco. Because I love reading, and we built libraries in our homes, but we also wanted to benefit local kids. So that's our project that we did last year. We've built 2 so far.
That's awesome. Anybody else have questions?
I have a
Go ahead.
question. I'm so glad you joined us today, by the way.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
You bet. Do you ever find there's resistance when you go into a country?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll tell you one story.
Be a challenge that you're discounting the way they care for their foster children, which in reality it should be questioned because I've seen some of the horror stories that go on in some of the other countries and how the children are treated. I just wondered how the government created any resistance when you went in.
Yeah, so I'll tell you one specific example. This was probably the toughest one that we've seen, is when we got land donated in Bangladesh from a family friend, and we were ready to, you know, proceed with blueprint and opening a bank account so that we can transfer the money. What happened was the government managing the specific area of, you know, social welfare, they actually wanted a cut. You know, I don't know if you've heard this, but Bangladesh is a pretty corrupt country. So they outrightly said, no, we want, you know, we want 5% of the money that you will be receiving from America.
Wow.
Can you believe that? So I said, no way, I am not paying anybody a penny. If you want this, I'm going to try to go somewhere else. So we started a project in Sri Lanka, and the land was donated by also another friend whose family was well connected with the government because his dad was a diplomat. So it was very easy. When you know people in the government, it's very easy. So it was very smooth, no bribery needed. We almost finished at home. Finally, we came back to Bangladesh. And because we were persistent, we held on to our principle. We said, we're not giving anybody anything for what? You know, it's one thing that you don't want to help your own people, but stealing from somebody else who's wanting to help, that is another crime altogether, right? So finally, they gave in. We built the house. It's done. We have now 50 girls. The picture I showed you was one from Bangladesh.
Fantastic.
So I think the lesson I learned is that you have to hold your ground. Otherwise, you will start to compromise your own principle, and there's no end. You know, you'll bribe here, bribe there, and then eventually the money that you work so hard for, donation money, will go toward people who doesn't really deserve anything from you.
True.
So does that answer the question, Lene?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Dian, have you worked with Rotary a bunch before? Because one of the things you mentioned is really important is having people on the ground that you trust. And I mean, generally speaking, I mean, not everybody's perfect, but generally speaking, when you work, Rotary in the United States is less prestigious. It's more of a club thing. When you go to most of the other countries in the world, it's a very prestigious thing. It's more common here. I don't know why. It's just, but you go to different countries, they tend to be the mayor. They tend to be like the governor. I mean, these are big positions.
Yeah.
If you used Rotary to find people that will be there permanently to help with your projects, and I'll give you another thing that came up in another talk that I heard someone give in India. Talking about doing water filling locations in India, and similar thing. I mean, this happens all over Vietnam and India. People want something, right? The government wants something. So what they did is they put their name on it. So the government was able to look good, like they had done something to support this project. Rotary was also on it.
Yeah.
The person's name. So when they gave the person some notoriety to say, hey, I'm helping my community, you know, and they did nothing. But they were able to get the water, you know, where people can come fill up with filtered fresh water there. And so, you know, whatever, that person can have their vanity. Have you worked with Rotary? Because Rotary has contacts all over the place. And I think you could, I mean, you're clearly passionate, you're clearly organized, you've got it together really well, better than a lot. I mean, have you taken advantage of that? And I'm not trying.
I think that's a great point. I haven't. I really haven't. I have a friend who actually runs, I don't know if you know him, Rushton Harley. Do you happen to know Rushton? Yeah. He runs the Rotary Club International, I think. So he had me speak also one time, long time ago, and he attended one of our first events. So really nice guy. But we haven't really worked with anyone in any of the homes. So that got me thinking maybe we should. If you have contact in Morocco, for example, right? Would love to talk to them. Like, I don't know if they are mainly in the capital, for example, because our project tends to be in rural area, as I mentioned, but I'm sure they have people they know, right? So for example, Rotary Morocco could be based in Rabat or Casablanca, and our home is in Oujda, which is about, I don't know, 3 hours flight from those cities. So it's really far, but they may have contact in this area, and they could start mobilizing people in that city to get involved. Well, I would love to explore that.
There's a club, I think it's Cupertino, I forget. He just spoke to us this year. I mean, just a few months ago, and he did this massive water project. And I mean, water, where water is rare.
Yeah.
Leave the amount of government people that want to be involved in the different conflicting interests. And I mean, it's a big deal. Because it
was in Morocco? He did it in Morocco?
He did it in Morocco. And they just did it like a few years ago, and he did this amazing presentation. So he loves Morocco. So I'm going to introduce you to him. I got to look his name up. I can't remember his name.
That would be awesome. I don't know where, because Morocco is also pretty big, but maybe he has contact. So let's, start the conversation.
The other thing, I think, I don't know, and I'm not good with this as much. I don't know. I really think it's worth your time to reach out to Rotary International, the big office, not like, and little clubs, you're going to get more stuff, but I think the big office back in Chicago, you should really reach out to their international projects folks and see about getting some funding, because there's a massive amount of money.
They probably get a lot of requests. So I think what would be good is if you know somebody there, maybe, you could do a quick intro, because otherwise it looks like me trying to, this is really not my style. I don't really go anywhere asking people for funding. I prefer to just share my story. Even when I get invited to Google, for example, it's by invitation. And then I share my story, because I think giving is not just giving money. Giving your time and talents are even more meaningful. But if they have a sort of similar mission, and if we can kind of elevate our work together, why not?
Oh, I will. There's a lady that I met at one of these things who used to be a trustee, and the trustee's like the group that makes all the big decisions, but she's not a trustee anymore. I will send an email to try to introduce her and see if there's some way to connect or something. Your organization's really, it's
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's something that, I work in corporate, as I mentioned, and I was lost. This is, I think God is bringing everything I love into this work, travel, people, children. Like I became a mother, not just to my own, but to hundreds and thousands of children. And I dream to help 10,000 kids. That's my goal for the next 10 years. I don't know if I'm going to be alive to make it happen, but you start somewhere and you continue until your last breath.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope that one day we get to meet in person, but is there anything I need to do to turn over the...
No, I took it back, and everybody's almost gone.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. We'll talk again soon.
Absolutely.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, Renee. Bye, Rod.